Alright guys, welcome to my channel, Crypto Tech, the inflation avoider here. And I just decided I want to talk about Bitcoin more than anything else in this video, because it's quite interesting what's been happening lately. Obviously, as we know, their price has been going down, and I've just bought some Bitcoin recently today to add while it's going down in price. And should it continue to go down in price, nothing changes. I continue to buy. But the reason I'm talking about Bitcoin is to do with what I've noticed creeping into the media. Now, we all know that, and it's not just the media, actually, social media, it's not in the mainstream media as such, because it's only people who hold Bitcoin or are into crypto that are really interested in these things. So what I'm talking about is, as we know, there's been more and more institutions getting in on Bitcoin, and I think we can safely say nation states as well, and it will be something where we start to see in time, many years from now, but I think the beginnings of it are starting now. Federal reserves with Bitcoin. Now, I know the USA has technically got one already, but that's usually taken and stored from proceeds of crimes and things like that, where Bitcoin has been accumulated. There's a number of DATs already out there that are dedicated to Bitcoin and other cryptos, but Bitcoin is what I'm concentrating on here, because we all trust Bitcoin. We all know that Bitcoin, really, it's just destined to go up in value. And right now, we're seeing a bit of a decline. We're seeing OGs getting rid of their Bitcoin, all of it, obviously, but they're deciding to cash in. We know pretty much that nation states, institutions, massive institutions, all want in on Bitcoin. So the question is, why suddenly are we seeing an increase, not only a decrease in the price, but why are we seeing more and more negative press about Bitcoin? More and more people that you'd kind of trust in the crypto world, for instance, and business world, being down on Bitcoin all of a sudden. Now, I'm not one of these people who talks about FUD and things like that. I don't believe in that bollocks, personally. It's like anybody who's not hearing what they want to hear about their particular crypto tends to throw out FUD like it's confetti. No, I'm talking about, well, for instance, we know Dampina, I think is called. He's always on about Bitcoin being worthless and going to nothing, and also made a statement that has been doing the rounds again about, if you knew who created Bitcoin, who Satoshi actually was, and he claims he does, then you would ditch Bitcoin and you would never go anywhere near it. There's also been links to the Epstein emails and all of that information, with a hint that he might be involved too. I think Dampina is probably referring to Vladimir Putin being the person. Now, I very much doubt he's been sat coming up with all these genius ideas himself. So it kind of kills the credibility a lot of Dampina, if that's who he's hinting at it being. But it's certainly not somebody like Jeffrey Epstein either. But yet these little things are taking hold to try and sow doubt in the minds of people who hold Bitcoin. And I think that's happening for a very good reason. Even today, bearing in mind, I saw something about Nick Szabo. Now, obviously, he is the chief suspect of being Satoshi, and he was even talking down Bitcoin and saying about there being massive risks and issues there. So why is he coming out now and saying things like that? Very unusual to find somebody like that talking down Bitcoin all of a sudden. Then we get on to Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor obviously has been saying buy when it comes to Bitcoin. But we have to bear in mind there's a good reason for that as well, because putting two and two together, he's not just doing it out of the goodness of his heart, saying, well, you should buy Bitcoin because it's great, which goes against the grain of some other people at the moment. He needs people to buy Bitcoin because it turns out that his liquidation levels are at around $74,000 Bitcoin. So should it plunge below that, he could be in deep trouble. And Bitcoin is edging closer, and I can even see it going to $68,000, something that I looked at the charts when I was thinking there's a chance that we could see Bitcoin at some point retrace to $68,000, just a figure I've got out there. Might not happen, so I wouldn't take any financial advice from me on it. Just something I looked at. So he might be looking at things a little bit nervously and encouraging people to buy. And obviously that would be a big shock to the system should anything bad happen there. But it also, for retail, presents an opportunity. And this is where I think, not just based on strategy, but I think the institutions, what's starting to happen is they're wanting us to part with our Bitcoin. They don't want us to have Bitcoin. There's only a limited supply, obviously, and there's a lot of people who want it, and a lot of big and important people. So now what they're trying to do, it would seem, it's looking that way, it's growing that way. They're trying to make it look as frightening as possible, I think, for people like, well, retail in general, who are holding Bitcoin, and they want to convince people to sell. So I'm expecting a lot more shit to come out about Bitcoin, and a lot more doom and gloom stories. And not just that, a lot more conspiracy stories, and Bitcoin connected to absolutely anything and looking for any flaw in it that they say could make it worthless, because that's what they, I believe, want us to believe. And that's how it's worked throughout history anyway, with institutions and world governments. They put out propaganda to make us believe what they want us to believe. My God, in school we're taught to go to work, put your money in the bank, and putting your money in the bank is absolutely the worst place to put it. You're guaranteed to lose money anyway, because the interest is not enough to cover inflation. I call myself the inflation avoider, and I couldn't remember the word. But yeah, so we are always convinced, it's like when wars happen, how quickly they'll turn the other country from being an ally once to the evil empire. This is how it works, to demonize and throw it at people. And it sticks, and people start hearing more of these stories and start growingly getting worried. And obviously, as we know how social media works, the word starts to spread, people share it, people pass it on, and casual viewers are watching it, and everybody suddenly thinks Bitcoin is a dud and it's going to zero. And that's what I believe they want us to believe. So that is why I am buying Bitcoin right now. So yeah, this I think is going to feature more and more. And obviously, if there's downward pressure on the price and the price continues to fall, that is going to feed into that narrative that Bitcoin is going to zero. But let's look at it this way. There's, in reality, a lot less than 21 million Bitcoin ever going to be in circulation. And that means that, let's just, for example, I think I mentioned it in my previous video, just imagine if Bitcoin, what price does Bitcoin have to go down to before you are like, right, I'm getting a mortgage to buy Bitcoin? What price does it have to go down to? It's only going to drop so far before that price just shoots right back up again. But they'll be ready because they can act fast and they can deploy funds. And this is now a waiting game, and I think we are in the middle of something big And people have talked about generational wealth. And if you hold your nerve, which will be harder to do, then you will come out of this with life-changing money. I believe that. I think crypto, if you believe in crypto as the future, which it really is, I mean, institutions would not be in on it like they are now and planning on it. They'd just ignore it if it wasn't. So Bitcoin plays a big part of that role, as we know. For crypto, nothing changes. But you've got to ask yourself, really, why are people so keen to convince you otherwise? Why do they all of a sudden want to convince you it's going to zero? It's going to be more authoritative people all the time. You've got to ask, are they being bought off? I don't know. Are they being paid to tell you? Because it goes on. It goes on with the wars we've got with, Russia and Ukraine, and the propaganda that has spread throughout Europe and to the USA. And it works both ways as well. I mean, I'm from Britain. We are the masters of propaganda. We inspired the Nazis' propaganda. So when the government is telling you that, it's getting people on board, it can afford to pay people and make it worthwhile for people to spread misinformation, disinformation. It's really strange to me that people institutions and nations and the IMF as well, saying countries are going to get left behind if they don't get in on crypto. It seems really strange to me that all of a sudden there's people dropping big bombs about Bitcoin as if it's going to go to zero and it's going to be worthless all of a sudden, and the price is going down. It just tells me that they want you to sell. They want us to sell our Bitcoin. And that means there might be more pressure on the price, but we're in this for the long haul. If you're a Bitcoin buyer, you're in it investing for the future. That's what you should be. So you're playing the long game. So that means if the price does go down dramatically, it's a really good buying opportunity. And it might last for a year or two, maybe 3 or 4, while institutions try and gobble up as much as they can get their hands on. But at the same time, that gives you time, and that is so important. So even though we might be possibly in a bear market right now, and this is, again, part of my while things are like that, I'm not focusing on dollar cost averaging or averaging out my prices for smaller alts. I'm concentrating on the big ones, Bitcoin, Ethereum. And I think it's important. It's easy to forget sometimes, or not want to focus on Bitcoin because it just seems too much of a gap to bridge. But I think it's really important that, especially now, to be taking advantage of it and planning the biggest part of your portfolio. Not financial advice, of course. I'm not a financial advisor. And if I was, I wouldn't be in crypto, more than likely. I think, it's time we ask ourselves why people are trying to put us off Bitcoin, who it is, and why are those same people buying. Got to ask yourself that, haven't you? Anyway, guys, just my little thought for today, and I will be back on soon. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think there's something building, a little conspiracy, call it what you like, to convince retail, me and you, to sell our Bitcoin so the institutions can have it? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Just another random thought. If you like random thoughts like this, do hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell icon as well. It'll update you as soon as I do another video. And also leave a like as well, please, because it really helps with the algorithm. And hey, let's get this video out to as many Bitcoin holders as we can. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.